They don't stop. Narcissists don't rest, reflect, or grow. They just mutate. New tactics, softer tones, more convincing masks. But the goal never changes. Control, disguised as connection. You show boundaries, they escalate. You stay calm, they twist it. You disappear, they crawl back with perfect timing. Not to love you, but to reset the trap. Part 2 isn't about empathy. It's about liberation by precision. Cold, clean, strategic. You've tried reasoning, you've tried compassion, you've tried explaining the truth like it was a group project. Enough. Now, we go full clarity, grounded in Stoic detachment and sharpened by Peterson's ruthless psychological insight. This isn't just philosophy, it's application. Ancient wisdom from Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, fused with modern tools from one of today's most unflinching voices in behavioral psychology. We're not here to just endure anymore. We're here to dismantle the system, calmly, ruthlessly, without asking permission. Marcus Aurelius taught just that you do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter. Jordan Peterson counters with, if you have something to say, silence is a lie. Together, they give you the mindset of a warrior monk. Say little, act with force, protect your order at all costs. So if you're still breathing through this, still ready to face the next level, drop a 1 in the comments. If you're not there yet, drop a 0. No shame, only honesty. And if you've escaped or are escaping, share your story. Someone out there is still inside. Like, share. Subscribe to Victory Stoic. This is not a recovery program. This is a full psychological repositioning. Let's begin. The war is still on, but now you know exactly where to aim. Number 6, compliment the wound and watch them shatter. A narcissist doesn't crumble when you insult them. They expect that. They've trained for it. What rattles them to the core is something far more subtle. A compliment, too perfect, too smooth, too close to the truth they've spent years hiding, one that lands right on the performance they mistake for personality. You look them in the eye and say, "You're so good at making people listen to you." And suddenly they can't breathe, because they hear it. Not the words, but the echo behind them. You're not praising their depth. You're not moved by their wisdom. You're not touched by their soul. You're observing a technique. You're naming the manipulation without ever accusing them of anything. And in that moment, you're not a victim anymore. You're a mirror. Narcissists fear mirrors more than enemies. Enemies give them fuel, arguments, drama, chaos. Mirrors give them silence and truth. Compliments that reflect the mask, not the person, shake their control. They leave them wondering, did they just see through me? Marcus Aurelius warned, the flatterer's aim is not to improve you, but to entrap you. But in this case, you're not using flattery to trap. You're using it to expose, to show that you've been watching, not worshiping, not arguing, watching. And now you've named the thing they were sure you'd never dare name. Their strategy. Kevin, 40, marketing executive in Los Angeles, built his identity around control. Smooth talker, star of every meeting, loved the sound of his own voice. His girlfriend, Maya, used to challenge him until she realized he didn't want conversation. He wanted a stage. So she stopped challenging. She started studying. And one night, during yet another monologue about how misunderstood he was, she simply said, "You're really good at taking up space." He laughed. But it didn't land. That night, he texted her 5 times, needing reassurance, clarification. Not because he was hurt, because he was exposed. This is the psychological edge. You praise the skill they're proud of, but in a way that reminds them it's a skill, not a truth. It's rehearsed, calculated. They know it. You know it. And now the mask feels fragile. It's no longer hiding them, it's being watched. Why does this work? Because narcissists live in constant performance. They think 3 moves ahead. They monitor your reactions, tone, language. Every interaction is about dominance. So when you give them a compliment that doesn't feed their ego but quietly points at the machinery underneath, they start to glitch. They question your intent. They question your loyalty. Most of all, they question whether you ever really believed in them at all. Epictetus said, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. In this case, you're doing the opposite. You're no longer being provoked. You're provoking. Without aggression, without escalation, just with calm recognition. Peterson calls this psychological clarity. He writes, to confront the truth means to risk everything that was built on a lie. That's what you're doing. Not with screaming, not with evidence, with one sentence perfectly placed that confirms their worst suspicion. They are being seen and not admired. Let's get practical. Here's a technique you can use, the compliment edge. Step 1. Identify what the narcissist in your life wants to be recognized for. Not who they are, but who they sell themselves as. Step 2. Write one sentence that praises that performance without praising their character. For example, if they pride themselves on being emotionally detached, say, "I really admire how you never let emotions cloud your decisions." If they crave admiration for leadership, try, "You're really skilled at getting people to align with your vision." These sentences don't lie, they highlight. Step 3. Deliver the sentence with calm neutrality. No sarcasm, no overemphasis, then stop. Say nothing else. Let the silence do the rest. The beauty of this approach is it doesn't invite debate. You haven't accused them. You haven't started a fight. You've handed them a mirror and walked away. And the moment you do, they're alone with the reflection. It's disorienting, because for once, they don't know what role you're playing. You're not the adoring fan. You're not the argumentative partner. You're not the broken one begging for peace. You're something new, something dangerous. You're someone who sees them and no longer reacts. Peterson again, if you are not capable of cruelty, you are absolutely a victim to anyone who is. This strategy is not cruelty, it's surgical. It's the moment you stop playing emotional defense and start playing informational offense. With a single phrase, you shift the balance of power. Here's an image for you. Imagine a stage actor mid-performance. Spotlights, audience, thunderous applause. But in the front row, one person stops clapping, just watches, calm, unmoved, and the actor sees them, feels their stillness. Suddenly, the applause feels hollow, the lines sound fake, the role feels forced. That one silent observer just ruined the illusion. That's you now. This tactic isn't about winning, it's about waking up. It's about reclaiming your place in the dynamic. Not as the one who explains, reacts, and dances, but as the one who names. With precision, with calm, with finality. If you've made it this far, if something in this hit a nerve or lit a fire, drop a 6 in the comments. If you're still unsure, drop a 0. We're not here to judge, only to build clarity. And if you've ever tried this and watched the mask crack, share your story. Someone else may need the map you just drew. Compliment the mask, then walk away before they ask if you meant it. Because the truth is, you did. You meant every word, and that's what makes it unbearable. Number 7. State the truth. With no emotion, no cushion, no exit. The narcissist can handle rage, they can deflect tears, they can twist sarcasm into martyrdom, but what they can't survive, what burns through their defenses like acid, is truth told without emotion. Not screamed, not dramatized, not hidden inside metaphors or qualifications. Just truth. Plain. Undeniable. Cold as fact. Why? Because narcissists don't live in reality. They live in curated perception, an image of themselves carefully constructed, polished, and defended at all costs. That image is fragile, held together by manipulation, distortion, and fear. And the truth? The real, unbending, unsentimental truth? That's the one force they cannot negotiate with, because truth doesn't flinch. Peterson puts it this way: in order to be able to think, you have to risk being offensive. When you speak the truth to a narcissist, you risk breaking their illusion. Not because you're cruel, but because reality does not care about their comfort, and neither should you. Stoicism echoes this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth." But a narcissist never seeks truth. They seek compliance. And that's where your truth becomes a threat. Let's see how this works in real life. Allison, 36, from Phoenix, was married to a man who manipulated every argument with tears, silence, or gaslighting. If she spoke up, he made her feel guilty. If she tried to express her needs, he'd question her tone. After years of confusion, one morning, she made coffee, sat down, and said it flat. "You don't listen, you pretend to, but your actions haven't changed in years. I don't feel safe in this marriage, and I don't believe you want to." He stared at her, waiting for the tears, the anger, the backpedaling, but there was none, just the truth. Direct, no begging, no emotion, no way out. He called her cold, unreasonable, accused her of giving up. But inside, he knew what had just happened. She stopped protecting him from the truth. And now he had no defense. Narcissists expect emotion because emotion gives them room to maneuver. If you're angry, they can call you irrational. If you cry, they can play the victim. If you explain too much, they can twist your words. But if you state a fact, calm, simple, without attachment, they choke on it. Because there's nothing to grab. You don't need to say, I feel like you don't care. You say, your actions are inconsistent with your words. You don't say, I just wish you'd try harder. You say, you've promised change repeatedly. It hasn't happened. You don't cry. Why do you always twist everything? You say, that's not what I said. You're changing the narrative. No soft landing, no emotional buffer, just clarity. And the moment you deliver it without fear or fury, you remove the emotional oxygen they use to burn you. This approach isn't just verbal, it's energetic, it's psychological. You walk into the room not to argue, but to observe out loud. You are no longer inside the drama, you are narrating it from above. And that position, that detachment, is terrifying to a narcissist. Because it means they've lost access to the control panel. Peterson again, you can't negotiate with reality. That's what you embody when you speak truth without apology. You are not inviting debate, you are announcing recognition. Here's the exercise. Start with one sentence you often sugarcoat. For example, you're emotionally unavailable. Now remove all emotional padding. Say it as you'd say, the sky is blue. Then test it. Watch their face. Watch the gears grind. Do not clarify, do not rescue. Let the truth do what it does best. Dismantle fiction. This method is powerful, but it comes with consequences. Narcissists won't respond with humility. They'll attack, not the truth, but your tone, your timing, your delivery. That's the trap. Don't fall in. Don't defend the truth. It doesn't need a lawyer. It only needs to be said. In some cases, the narcissist will try to twist your calm into cruelty. They'll say, you're being so cold. But what they mean is, you're not giving me anything to manipulate. Let them say it. Let them feel it. Let the silence after truth feel heavier than any scream. You are no longer offering emotional cushioning for someone else's delusions. You're not the comforter. You're the clarity. Because some truths need to be said once, without emotion, without compromise, and without fear. And once they're spoken, nothing stays the same. Number 8, don't overshare. They're not listening, they're collecting ammunition. You thought they were listening. You thought they were curious. You thought opening up connection, that if you shared enough, explained enough, gave them access to the raw material of who you are, they would understand you better. Love you deeper. Respect the complexity behind your boundaries. But what you didn't see was this. They weren't listening to know you. They were listening to use you. Every confession, every vulnerable memory, every late-night story you thought was safe, it went into a folder, a mental archive, not for safekeeping, for leverage. That story about your emotionally unavailable father, it will be used when you ask for space. That breakdown you had in 2018, thrown in your face the next time you dare call them out for instability. That thing you said in trust, in weakness, in love, it's already locked, loaded, and waiting to be repackaged as proof that you're the real problem. And the worst part? They'll tell your story better than you do. But not to heal it, to twist it. Jordan Peterson writes, when you tell someone who you are, you're handing them a weapon. In healthy hands, that weapon becomes a bond, a tool to protect each other. But in the hands of a narcissist, it becomes a snare, because they don't want to understand you. They want to own the blueprint. It goes further. Narcissists don't just collect your secrets, they copy your strengths, they mimic your patterns, they adopt your vocabulary, your dreams, your emotional style. Not because they admire you, but because they want to become you in the eyes of your partner, your friends, your world. It sounds paranoid, but watch. You tell them you love quiet mornings, strong coffee, early gym sessions. Suddenly, they're up at dawn posting coffee selfies and tweeting Stoic quotes. You tell them about your goals, your work ethic, your way of navigating conflict with calm, reasoned detachment. Suddenly, they're the image of mature restraint until the door closes. Why? Because they're not building themselves. They're building a counterfeit version of you, one they can weaponize in your own home. Let's look at a real story. Tony, 43, a firefighter in Colorado, had a narcissistic ex who latched onto everything he loved. His favorite hikes, his morning routines, even his style of talking. At first he felt connected, seen, until she started using those same things to bond with his friends. One night, after they argued, she told a mutual friend, "Tony's been off lately. I've been the one staying strong, just like he taught me. You know me. I journal, I stay stoic." Tony hadn't told anyone she journaled, because she didn't, until he said it was important to him. Then it became hers, not in practice, in presentation. This is how narcissists disarm you, not through attack, but through imitation. They make you think we're so aligned, while slowly replacing you in your own story. By the time they're done, you're the villain, and they're just the hurt, wise version of you who never had a chance. Marcus Aurelius said, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know the truth." But here's the problem. When a narcissist has your words, your life, your voice, they can write the truth for you, and people believe them. Not because the lie is good, but because it's delivered with your tone. So here's the move. Stop talking. Not out of fear, out of strategy. Don't tell them what hurts. Don't explain what you need. Don't narrate your evolution. Let them guess. Let them sit in silence. Let them flail for the blueprint. Because every sentence you offer is not conversation. It's a future weapon. A twisted quote. A memory they'll recall at just the right moment to undermine your authority in your own life. Epictetus said, "Keep silence for the most part, and speak only when you must." In this war, silence isn't cold, it's armor. Clarity without detail, presence without exposure. Here's how you practice it. Start with this rule. If someone has ever thrown your words back at you, they no longer qualify for full access. They get headlines, not articles. They get summaries, not stories. When they ask, "Why are you distant?" you say, "I'm conserving energy." When they press, "But I want to understand," you say, "I'm not offering that anymore." Say it once. Calm. Then stop. The old you felt guilty for being quiet. The new you understands that some truths are sacred, and sacred things don't get passed around. Peterson teaches that people reveal who they are when they're denied control. Watch what happens when you stop explaining. When you stop feeding them sentences to edit. When you give them nothing but your boundaries. The silence that follows will say more than any story ever could. And if they scream, sulk, cry, accuse, let them. That's not pain, that's panic. Panic from losing access. Panic from realizing the real power wasn't in what you gave them, but in the fact that you've stopped giving. So here's the truth. You don't need to be known by them, because knowing in their hands isn't intimacy, it's leverage. The less they know, the freer you are. And the more they imitate, the more obvious the counterfeit becomes. Number 9, become the rock, and let their egos starve to death. Some people fight back with words. Some escape, some explode. But the ones who win against a narcissist, they don't yell, they don't block, they don't explain. They just become a rock. Cold, heavy, inert, boring, utterly unappetizing. Because nothing destroys a narcissist's hunger for attention like absolute clinical dullness. It's called the gray rock method. And it's the psychological equivalent of throwing sand into the engine of manipulation. It's not drama, it's not resistance, it's worse. It's emotional extinction. You used to feed them. Reactions, tears, explanations, raised eyebrows, texts 3 paragraphs long. You used to offer flavor, fire, feedback. You were a 5-star buffet for their starving ego. But now, you're just cool. Okay, noted. You've become what they fear most. A human wall with no reflection, no fuel, no sparkle. A mirror that doesn't respond. Let me tell you a story. Harper, 39, a vet technician in Atlanta, spent 4 years in a relationship with someone who thrived on chaos. If she cried, he called her unstable. If she defended herself, he'd smile and say, "See, this is what I mean." If she said nothing, he'd poke until she snapped. Then one day, she decided to become boring. He accused her of acting cold. She replied, He shouted, "Say something." She replied, "Nothing worth saying." He threw a glass. She blinked. He begged for a reaction. She asked, "You done?" And that night, for the first time, he slept somewhere else. Because the performance only works when the audience claps. Narcissists don't need you to love them. They don't even need you to like them. They need you to react. The moment you become non-reactive, not fake calm, not passive-aggressive, but truly indifferent, they start to panic. Because what they're seeing isn't just resistance, it's irrelevance. And for someone whose identity depends on being the center of gravity in every room, irrelevance is death. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. The gray rock method is exactly that. You're no longer trying to win the conversation. You're no longer trying to correct the lie. You've stopped playing. You're just a presence, still, firm, emotionally unaffordable. But let's be clear, this isn't easy, especially for those of us who are trained to over-explain, over-apologize, over-perform, to be liked, understood, seen. Becoming gray, truly gray, feels wrong at first. You feel fake, mean, cold. That's not your conscience talking, that's your conditioning screaming because it's losing relevance. Peterson warns, agreeableness unchecked becomes servitude. He's right. If you're always the one softening your tone, adjusting your face, editing your truth, you've become their emotional secretary. Gray rock isn't just a tactic, it's the resignation letter. Let's break it down. Gray rock doesn't mean silence, it means neutral engagement. They say you're being distant lately. You reply, probably. They text, I miss you. You reply, hope you're well. They bait, so I guess you don't care at all. You reply, I heard you. Each answer short, dry, without flavor, without story. They'll escalate, they'll accuse you of being fake, emotionally manipulative. They'll try to provoke anything, tears, laughter, fear. They're not asking for honesty, they're asking for access. Don't give it. Here's an image to hold. Imagine a child throwing a tantrum in a supermarket. People watch. The parent stays calm, no yelling, no bribes, just a steady hand on the cart. Eventually, the kid runs out of steam. Why? Because tantrums need witnesses. Narcissists are the same. Deny the stage, and the show ends. Want to train for this? Do the 48-hour dullness drill. Every time they message you, respond in 7 words or less. No questions, no emotion, no personal details. Keep a journal. Track the moment they start to change tone. You'll see it. First confusion, then frustration, then desperation, then silence. Because your lack of color is their kryptonite. Now here's the twist. They may switch tactics. They'll pretend to mirror you, say things like, I just want peace, or suddenly act introspective. Don't fall for it. That's not growth. That's adaptation. They're trying to make you sparkle again. Stay gray. Epictetus said it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. Their words aren't dangerous. Your reaction is, remove the reaction and their words become weightless. It's not about being cold, it's about being clean. Clean of guilt, clean of overfunctioning, clean of roles you were never meant to play. When they say you've changed, nod. When they accuse, you're boring now, agree. When they sulk, threaten, flirt, or beg, don't blink. You're not rude. You're the rock they can't move. And that's the point. If you're the kind of person who catches on fast, who's tired of being the script and ready to be the wall, the kind of person who'd rather be a dull gray boulder than an emotional vending machine, comment 9 below. Because this isn't just a strategy, it's your permission to become untouchable. Number 10. Expose it to the light, where their tricks stop working. The manipulator's greatest weapon isn't intelligence, it's isolation. They don't win by being right, they win by being alone with you, where they can bend your mind, distort your memory, corner your emotions, and rewrite the narrative in real time. No witnesses, no context, no accountability. Just you, explaining, defending, doubting yourself again while they sit there playing either the victim, the genius, or the voice of reason. You know how it goes. In private, they're sharp, cruel, precise. They cut you open, calmly, surgically, without even raising their voice. But the moment someone else walks in, they're all charm and decency, smiling, agreeable, the picture of maturity. And suddenly, you're the one who looks off. You're the one whose tone is too sharp, whose emotion feels out of place. The worst part? They rely on that contrast. They weaponize context. So what's the one thing they can't prepare for? You turning on the lights. You saying, let's talk about this when others are present. It sounds simple, innocent, even cooperative. But to a narcissist, it's nuclear. Because now they can't control the frame. They can't twist your words without someone else seeing the warp. They can't bait you into a fight and then play the saint 5 minutes later. You're not giving them a conversation anymore. You're offering a witnessed record, and they want no part of it. Let's go deeper. Jordan Peterson says, people reveal who they are under pressure, but even more so when they are being observed. What he's getting at is the human instinct to perform and the narcissist's dependency on it. When alone, they're in total control of the setting, the lighting, the lines, the energy. Bring someone else into the room, even a neutral third party, and suddenly they have to behave. But behaving isn't in their nature. Control is. You ever notice how their voice gets sweeter when others are around? How the cruelty evaporates? That's not growth. That's branding. Their image is fragile. They spend their lives protecting it. So if you move the conversation into a public or semi-public space, a group chat, a dinner with friends, a meeting with a third party, they start to crumble. Not outwardly at first, but internally, their game becomes useless. Their tools don't work under observation. Let me give you a story. Daniel, 46, a contractor in Oregon, had a business partner who constantly undercut him, always in private. In front of clients, the guy was respectful, polite, even deferential. But behind closed doors, power plays, undermining, gaslighting about who made what decision. For months, Daniel tried to reason with him. Nothing worked, until one day, after another manipulative conversation, Daniel simply said, "Let's finish this talk during Monday's team meeting." Silence. Then, "We don't need to involve everyone, do we?" Daniel repeated, "I'd rather everyone be on the same page." That Monday, the manipulator didn't show up, then resigned 3 weeks later. Why? Because Daniel didn't argue, didn't retaliate. He just brought the conversation into a room with windows, and the illusion couldn't survive the daylight. This is what Marcus Aurelius meant when he wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." You don't out-scheme the narcissist. You outlight them. You move the interaction into an arena where masks are harder to maintain. It doesn't have to be a crowd. Sometimes one other person is enough. A therapist, a friend, a colleague, anyone whose presence demands decency. Because what you're doing isn't exposure for revenge, it's exposure for balance, for truth. And here's why it works so brutally well. Narcissists rely on confusion. Private conversations give them space to gaslight, to redefine what just happened, to deny tone, to rewrite the script. Bring in a third person, and now the conversation has witnesses, which means there's a chance you won't feel crazy this time. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." But in this case, it's the narcissist who's terrified of looking foolish. That's why they keep you alone. Why they pull you aside. Why they say don't talk about this with anyone else. Because deep down, they know the version of them you've seen can't stand up to external scrutiny. Want to apply this? Try the open curtain technique. When the manipulation starts, don't engage. Wait, then calmly say, "Let's bring this up in the group meeting." Or, "I'd rather we discuss this with name present. They've been part of this too." Do not say it defensively. Say it like someone requesting an extra chair at dinner. Normal, polite, but firm. Watch their face. You'll see it, the micro flicker of fear. Because now they're not talking to you. They're performing for an audience they can't control. They might accuse you of trying to embarrass them, of escalating things. Don't take the bait. Just smile and repeat, "No, I just prefer transparency." Then stop talking. This isn't passive aggression. It's context control. You're not playing games. You're choosing a space where clarity has a better chance of surviving. Narcissists want shadows. You're giving them sunlight. Peterson warns, you don't get to not to have a hierarchy. You just get to choose which one. When you pull a manipulator into a shared, visible space, you're creating a hierarchy where truth ranks higher than volume, where decency is expected, not optional. They can't play hero, victim, and villain all at once when someone else is watching. And no, you don't owe them privacy for conversations they've historically used to break you. Privacy is a privilege, one they lost the minute they used it as a weapon. You want power? Say this, "Let's not do this in private anymore. I'd rather have this conversation with someone else present." That's it. That's the line. Say it once. Then let the silence stretch. Because when the curtain opens, when the lights go up, and when someone else walks into the room, even metaphorically, the narcissist has to choose. Either act like a real human being or risk exposure. Most of them choose silence, or distance, or retreat. Either way, you win. Number 11, the look that sees through them and silences the game. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to argue, expose, or explain. Sometimes the most devastating thing you can do to a narcissist is look at them. Not just casually, not with fear, not with confusion, with clarity. with stillness, with the kind of gaze that doesn't flinch, doesn't blink, and most of all doesn't buy it anymore. Because when a narcissist realizes they've been seen, really seen, beyond the charm, beyond the lies, beyond the fake vulnerability and calculated chaos, the entire illusion begins to tremble. They've spent their life crafting a character, and now your eyes are saying, "I see the man behind the curtain." They will freeze, or lash out, or mock you. Anything to make you look away. Because your gaze, no longer seduced, no longer unsure, no longer seeking their approval, is a spotlight they cannot control. There's a reason this hits so hard. Narcissists rely on emotional fog. Their power is not in force, but in distortion. They keep you questioning, checking, hoping, regretting, second-guessing, and they thrive in the haze. But the moment your expression goes still, the moment your face no longer dances to their mood, the fog clears. And what's standing there for once isn't you explaining or apologizing or asking them to understand. It's you, watching. Jordan Peterson once said, when you look into the abyss long enough, it looks into you. But when you look at a liar without blinking, they'll look away first. That's what you do now. You look. Not in anger, in awareness, in absolute stillness. And it terrifies them. They'll call it judgment, coldness, arrogance, but it's not. It's truth, no longer hidden behind performance. And that truth carries weight. Let's take a look at a real-world moment. Monica, 41, an ICU nurse from Minnesota, was in a long on-again, off-again relationship with a man who used silence, guilt, and emotional chaos to keep her orbiting his needs. One night, after another recycled fight about her attitude, he began his usual routine, the sigh, the monologue, the accusations masked as concern. And she didn't argue, didn't nod, didn't even respond. She just stared, not blankly, not passive-aggressively, just calmly, as if watching something fall apart behind glass. He paused, blinked, changed tone, started to get defensive, then needy. "Why are you looking at me like that?" he asked. She said nothing, because nothing needed to be said. Her silence was the reply. Her gaze was the verdict. He left before finishing his speech. That was the last time he ever tried to fix her. Why does this work? Because narcissists are not afraid of conflict. They invite it. They know how to win a fight, not with truth, but with confusion. But the one thing they cannot stand is being observed without emotion. Your stare is no longer reactive. It's not hoping, it's not negotiating, it's not defending itself. It's simply bearing witness. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look within, let neither the flesh nor the passions hold sway over your reason, then act with justice." Your look, the one that says, "I know who you are and I owe you nothing," that's the look of justice. Quiet, merciless, clean. Want to make this real? Practice this. Next time they monologue, bait you, accuse you, stop. Breathe once, then look at them. Eyes still, jaw relaxed, body unmoved, no reaction, no shift in posture, just see them. Not the version they sell, the one behind it. Say nothing unless you must. If you speak, speak slowly, deliberately, with no need to win. If they ask, "Why are you staring at me like that?" respond, "I'm listening." If they mock you, let them. If they accuse, let it land in the space between you and fall flat. You're not there to stop the performance. You're there to watch it burn out on its own. This gaze, this presence is spiritual warfare. It says, "I no longer dance for your dysfunction," and that silence, that expression, it unravels what 10 years of arguing couldn't fix. You don't need a plan. You don't need a clever comeback. You need to see them for who they are and let them feel it. Because the performance only continues as long as they believe someone still believes it. You don't. Not anymore. And that is the beginning of your exit and the end of their power. Number 12. Accept the loneliness. Because freedom has a price. Freedom looks glamorous from the outside. The clarity, the boundaries, the power of walking away. But no one talks about the silence that comes after. The stillness, the ache, the absence. Especially after breaking free from someone who manipulated you with affection, drama, promises, and pain. Because for all the damage they caused, they filled space. Space you now sit in, alone. But here's the truth no one tells you: that space you're sitting in, it's not emptiness, it's sovereignty. Narcissists can't stand alone. They perform, they provoke, they project. But only if someone is watching. They need an audience to feel alive. Validation is oxygen. Applause is identity. When you stop being their audience, they wither. But you, standing alone for the first time, begin to become. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A man must stand erect, not be kept erect by others." You're not here to be held up by flattery or fear. You're here to become someone who stands alone, even when it hurts. Because that pain? That's not emptiness. That's the weight of a self returning. But let's not romanticize it too soon. It's hard. You'll have nights where silence roars louder than screams, days where you second-guess the decision, memories that flash with both tenderness and horror. And sometimes you'll miss even the chaos, not because it was good, but because it was familiar. That's okay. It doesn't mean you were wrong, it means you're detoxing. Jordan Peterson reminds us, don't sacrifice who you could be for who you are. And sometimes, who you are today, broken, bruised, rebuilding, feels lonely. But that version of you is already better than the one who was orbiting someone else's ego just to feel safe. Freedom is quiet at first, because it's not loud like codependence. It doesn't flood your phone with texts. It doesn't beg to be noticed. It doesn't perform. Freedom waits, it watches, and then it rebuilds, slowly, from the inside out. Realize this. The loneliness you feel now is not the same as being alone under the narcissist's shadow. That was isolation, feeling invisible while surrounded. This is solitude, and solitude is fertile ground. You're not meant to stay alone forever. But you are meant to walk alone long enough to become someone who's never dependent on another person's emotional weather. You are not a moon orbiting their sun. You are not a mirror reflecting someone else's vanity. You are not a backup dancer in their one-man show. You're a sovereign being, and sovereignty, like muscle, is earned through resistance. So here's the mindset shift. You're not lonely because you've lost something valuable. You're lonely because you've stopped renting space in a fantasy. You've exited a delusion that cost you your peace, and now you're re-entering your own life. Clean. Let's ground this in reality. Take Sam, 45, a fitness coach in San Diego. He left a narcissistic friendship that had lasted over a decade. His best friend was always the louder one, the star in every room, the guy who joked at Sam's expense, who needed to be the center of every story. Sam laughed it off, until he realized he wasn't laughing anymore. He was shrinking, so he walked away. No drama, no warning, just gone. The first month, brutal. No calls, no invites, no inside jokes. Sam felt like a ghost. But the second month, he started journaling again, training harder, reading, sleeping better. And in that silence, he found something. Himself, uninterrupted. He didn't replace that friend with 10 new ones. He met one guy at the gym, quiet, decent, solid. They trained together, spoke less. Trusted more, no games, no center stage, just presence. This is what Stoicism teaches. Seneca said, associate with people who are likely to improve you, not impress you, not entertain you. Improve. Quality over quantity, iron over glitter. Fewer people, stronger bonds. Peterson agrees. Choose friends who want the best for you, not those who tolerate you when you're weak and abandon you when you grow, not those who shine brighter when you dim yourself. You're done with that. You're building now, carefully. You'll get lonely, yes, but don't confuse that with failure. It's not loneliness because you're unworthy. It's loneliness because your standards just went up, and most people can't reach them. That's not a tragedy, that's a filter. Here's your exercise. Write down what you used to tolerate to avoid being alone. Lies, mockery, one-sided loyalty. Then ask yourself, would I allow this in a stranger? If the answer is no, then why did you call it love? Next, write 3 things you can do alone that build your inner structure. Lifting, reading, creating, volunteering, anything that grows your root system, because you are the tree now, not the vine. Being alone is not failure. It's not weakness. It's not punishment. It's the forge, the cave, the temple. And here's what the narcissist will never admit. They can't survive in solitude. You can. That alone is your win. Because when the dust settles, the game ends, and the crowds disappear, the narcissist will seek another stage. But you'll stand in your own stillness, building something they've never tasted. Peace. Final conclusion. If you're still watching to the very end, let this be known. You are not broken. You are awake. And awakening hurts. It burns through your illusions, your nostalgia, your hope that maybe they'll change, maybe they didn't mean it, maybe if you explain it better, they'll finally see you. But now you see the truth, and that's enough. You've stared into the mouth of manipulation and stepped back, not in fear, in clarity. You've stopped answering the bait You've stopped dancing for approval. You've stopped mistaking chaos for connection. And most of all, you've stopped betraying yourself just to keep someone else from falling apart. This was never about revenge. This was about remembering who you were before the conditioning, before the gaslighting, before they convinced you that your truth was a threat, that your boundaries were cruelty, that your silence was violence, and that your resistance was betrayal. You know better now. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." You've done both. You've chosen truth. You've chosen stillness. You've chosen to leave the stage while they still expect you to perform. And nothing tortures a narcissist more than a person who has become emotionally unreachable. So if this series has hit something raw, something buried, something real, comment 1 below. If you think we didn't go far enough, if there's still more you need, comment 0. We don't take that as offense. We take it as a challenge. To go even deeper, even clearer, to finish what we started. And if you've lived this, if you've walked through the psychological war zone of a toxic dynamic and made it out breathing, share your story. You don't know who needs your voice. You don't know who's still inside the house thinking they're the problem. Maybe your comment is the first crack in their illusion. And finally, like, share, and subscribe to Victory Stoic. Not because we asked, but because you're ready. This isn't self-help. This is psychological combat training. This is not a safe space. This is a sharpened one. This is not a healing circle. This is a forge. You are not the same. You're not here to entertain manipulators. You're here to rebuild your kingdom, brick by brick, in silence, in strength, in truth. The war is over. Now go live free.